everybody, welcome to this day of the virtual summit. I am pumped because we are going to learn how to rock our LinkedIn profiles. I am joined with Alison. Hi, Alison.
Hey.
And where are you joining us all the way from? I've been asking everybody because it's been fun to hear how international everyone works.
I am on the southwest coast, or southeast, I should say, coast of Madagascar in a town called Port-Dauphin. We're almost as far south as you can get in Madagascar. So.
That is amazing. I think by the time the summit is done, we've literally like almost every single continent in the world is going to be covered. It's pretty cool. And I love that it lends to the work from anywhere. It's really real. We're really all doing it. So exactly. You are this awesome LinkedIn pro. I've gotten to talk to you before and I was blown away. I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn I didn't know. So tell us a little bit about in the remote work world, who's using LinkedIn and kind of how are they using it, and kind of give us the scope a little bit for those that might not be really familiar with it.
Okay. So there's a bunch of different ways people can use LinkedIn, but the thing that at the most basic level you need to be aware of is that now in this day and age, if you're applying for any kind of job, especially a remote job, people need to be able to trust you and they need to be able to vet you in some way. And so almost the first place everybody always goes is to LinkedIn. And so if you have a profile that is out of date, you don't have a profile, you don't have your profile picture visible to people that don't know you, those sorts of things, you're already sort of behind the game. Mm-hmm. After that, if you are actually looking for a job, there's companies, there's entrepreneurs, there's everybody's on LinkedIn. And a lot of the remote companies are on LinkedIn. Zapier's on LinkedIn, Buffer's on LinkedIn. I don't know if he ended up hiring through LinkedIn, but the CEO for Buffer was hiring for an executive VA earlier this fall. It had a crazy salary and benefits, and it was on LinkedIn, which is why I know about it. And so, all sorts of different people are on LinkedIn, and you basically, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're at a disadvantage, especially if you're trying to find work. And then after that, you can use, for example, on Upwork, the only link that Upwork actually lets you put to an external link on your profile is a link to your LinkedIn profile.
You can almost use it like a website or like a resume. That's how I use mine. Like if somebody asks for a resume, I don't really send one. I'll send like a PDF about myself, things I've done. And then I'm like, here's my LinkedIn. And because that has everything in it and they're probably going to check it anyway. So you can really, it sounds like a lot of people are using it like that. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. And even more than a resume, though, is that LinkedIn is dynamic. It shows people your relationships. In your headline, you can put what you want to be doing. So let's say your current job or your last job, your job title wasn't exactly what you want to do. That's why your headline is like your future. And so, whereas your job title and your work experience is your past. And so your professional summary, even your future. So really that first part of your LinkedIn profile, you can create this professional narrative of who you want to be as a professional. And as long as it's authentic, I mean, you don't want to go and lie or mislead people, but you tell people what you can do, what you can offer them, what your solutions are for their problems. And that way it's a resume, it's a social vetting platform, and it's a way to create the future that you want to live. So yeah.
So much more powerful.
Much more.
I think that a lot of us are like, oh yeah. We don't realize that it has this, it's like so strong and actually does so much. So thank you. I think that helps us to be like, oh crap, we probably should get on that. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience, but why don't you share with us a little bit about your background, maybe in the remote workspace, and then as well as how you kind of got to be this like LinkedIn expert.
So I'll back up a little bit more than that. So my career primarily came from working in hospitality and working in NGOs. And I liked working in hotels and hospitality and also working in international NGOs because I like to travel and I like people and I like cultures and whatnot. In those roles, I did primarily management. I did a lot of hiring and training. And so, I actually joined LinkedIn in 2005, and I saw people at that point in time, primarily in the IT industry, but I could see how people were using it to get work. And then when I actually physically moved overseas in 2013, I started strategic writing and part of that, and ghostwriting, and part of that was resume writing. And over time, I really fell in love with the resume writing and the ghostwriting that has to do with sort of professional narratives and creating those things, because it's amazing to be able to just have somebody send me their resume, for example, and I ask them a couple questions, and I'm able to sort of pull out their brilliance and put it out there. And when
It's almost
I've been writing
like this personal brand story. When you
it
say
is
narrative, that's what I think of. I'm like, it's really like, how do I want to present myself to these companies, and like, what's my story? Like, that's kind of what you're able to pull out, because it's so hard for us to do it for ourselves.
exactly. And when we're writing our resumes and things like that, everybody gets we're afraid we're going to be sounding like we're bragging, or that we're overstating. And especially women don't think, unless they've got like a PhD in something, that they can say that they're an expert. And we have all these natural skills and all these different things. And so it's an amazing experience for me. It's an honor to be able to sort of pull all this information out and put it out there and help people create that brand story for themselves, essentially. And when Microsoft bought LinkedIn a couple years ago, I saw that things were starting to change, and they were changing the way that the posts and the feeds and all of these things worked. And so I started paying a lot more attention. And, you know, for example, I used to give people the option not to do a LinkedIn profile. And now I always, if somebody hires me for a resume, I like force them to do a LinkedIn profile. And because it's really important. And, you know, I very, very rarely do only a resume these days. And I have lots of people, on the other hand, that hire me to do only a LinkedIn profile. And so even if you're already employed, or if you're an entrepreneur or somebody who doesn't generally need a resume, you still need a LinkedIn profile. And so really just watching the power of that and seeing people create and pivot. And, you know, it's amazing how you can pivot careers with LinkedIn. It's amazing how, if you're in Minnesota and you want to move back to your hometown in Wyoming because your parents are getting old, you can. And LinkedIn facilitates all of this. And so, you know, if I could tell all my client stories, so much of it would have to do with LinkedIn. So
That's awesome. I love that. They're so passionate about it because of how it's helped so many people transition into the online career, or the job that really makes the most sense for them and allows them to thrive. So, you know, I love the summit so much because I'm a firm believer, I know you are too, that it's more about just working online. Like, that's not all it is. It goes way deeper than that. It allows us to care for sick friends or sick loved ones. It allows us to, if ourselves have a mental health issue or a physical issue that we need to be able to work from home or work online, there's so much more to it. And I feel like you've recognized that too in the people that you've been able to help. So that's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of your tips. You always have amazing tips for optimizing our LinkedIn profiles. I would love to hear them, especially for the people who want to work online or want to work remotely and want to be attractive to some of these companies, or to, you know, even small startups, or just one business person that is looking to hire them. So how can we best optimize our profiles?
Okay. So I think the first, I call it, and if you've read any of my things or heard me before, I talk about the blink image. And this is what people see when they type in the search box and your profile picture and your headline show up, and maybe a little bit of your professional summary, your work experience, or when they actually click through to your profile and they see your profile picture, they see your headline, they see your background image, and then the first 300 characters of your profile. And so these are really that branding component where people either click to read more or they move on. And so, for example, a lot of people get caught up in feeling uncomfortable, or they think that a profile picture or a nice headshot isn't worth it. But the thing is if somebody can see somebody else's head profile really clearly, if they can see your face, if you're smiling, if you look approachable, if they can see your eyes, you know, like in occasionally an artistic photo that's like a side profile or something like that's okay, especially if you have an established business. But if you're just getting out there, people need to be able to look you in the eye and see your face. You have to have a profile picture, and you have to have your profile picture available to be seen by people that don't know you, that aren't part of your network. Like a lot of people get worried about privacy, and so they put their profile, they hide their profile. And after that, your headline and your background image, if somebody comes up and you've got a background image, no background image, it looks like maybe you haven't been online for 2 years, back when people didn't really use background images. Or if you put up something really weird, I think of an example once that was somebody that had put up a bunch of code. I think I mentioned this to you before, because she'd been doing some coding, even though that wasn't her field, but she'd been doing some coding. And when I saw it, we were talking just around Veterans Day, and I thought it was like the Vietnam War memorial. And I was so confused because it didn't relate at all to what she was doing in marketing. And so if you do put up a background image, if you've got no idea, you can just put up a solid color. If you're wearing a red shirt, maybe you find a nice red sort of, or, not too bold, but, something that complements what's the color in your clothing, or just a white background, or a pretty picture. By pretty picture, I'm thinking like scenery, like mountains or lake or something like that.
You can also make graphics on Canva. Canva is a free tool, and they have one that's pre-measured for LinkedIn. I put on mine like what my headline is, like what I do kind of a thing, and who I am, with just a really simple background. I probably need to update it, actually. It's been a minute. But you don't have to like reinvent the wheel, but also like what you said, you don't want nothing, and you don't want something that's not on brand, so to say, for what you're trying to put out there.
The only reason I didn't suggest that people do that is, like, for example, in your case, you've done a lot of branding work. And so it's easy in one sense for you to put up what you do.
Right.
But if somebody's just coming out and they're not too sure, and I don't want people to spend 3 hours looking for the perfect quote or the perfect thing. Just get something up there that is simple, clean, and doesn't distract. On the other hand, if you do have a tagline or something like that, and it's going to really help people understand what you do, then by all means put that up and use Canva. But I don't want people to like get freaked out about it.
Totally. Really good point.
The other part that's really important is your headline should really be something that tells people what you offer them. And so one of the other big mistakes I see is that people will put like all the possible keywords in their headline as possible. And LinkedIn actually penalizes you, and they say this in their terms, that if you put too many keywords in your headline, you'll be considered a spam profile. And the other part of that is that if somebody is coming to you, they're looking for somebody that can do X, Y, and Z. And if they see that you can do the whole alphabet, they're not going to stop and find out if you do X, Y, and Z best.
Yep.
And you're going to look for somebody that can. And so you really do need to narrow and focus your profile, because if you don't know what you can do best, then nobody else is going to take the time to find out for you. So you need to pick something, and maybe that work will take you over here, and then it'll take you over here, and then maybe you want to go back and redo your profile and refocus it again. But when you're starting out, you pick 2 or 3 main service areas that you offer for whatever your business is or whatever your overarching professional goals are, and really align that with your headline. And if you can, put in a sentence headline that says, I do X for Z, or I solve this sort of problem, or I activate, or, something that shows people that you're an action person. And then you can put in 2 or 3, put slashes or stars or whatever's appropriate to you as a divider, but put those in at the end of your headline. So then people can also search you on the keywords, but don't overdo it.
Cool.
And the last sort of part of that whole sort of picture and bling image are those first 300 characters. And so a lot of times I see people start off, again, this is Alison, blah, 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 does this. And I just got that from your name on your profile and from your headline. And so don't lose valuable real estate by repeating something in the beginning of your professional summary that's already there. Dive right into more about this type of solution that you offer somebody. How if you're a virtual assistant, how you're going to free people up to save their time or make their lives easier. Address something specific about your solution that's going to get them to click and read more, or the type of clients you want to work for. And so, you're probably not going to want to work for everybody. So if you can specifically help people in IT, or if you can help creatives, if you can help marketers, if you're really strong on the writing end, you know, bring those sort of details to the forefront so that people see it right away. And then they're going to click through and read the rest of your summary.
I
So
love
that's
that.
really
Just those few
some of
little
the
things I
remote.
think could make a really big difference.
And I forgot, as part of that, one of the things you can put in your headline is also put in one of your keywords is put remote in. And I don't see this done a lot, but if you really, really only want to work remotely, it's a great indicator for people that, and for example, if you have your profile location set as, for example, my profile says I'm in Boulder, Colorado. And in one sense, that's true. My business, all of my stuff, my credit, my bank, all those things are out of Boulder, Colorado. But down in my work experience, I clearly detail that I am working in the US, that I work sometimes in Europe, that sometimes I'm in Madagascar. And so there's ways to adjust your profile that show where you are and let people know what's going on. But if you are really focusing on that remote aspect, you could also put that in your headline.